At 11:47 a.m. on February 9, 1944, Second Lieutenant James Keller watched 5 Focke-Wulf Fw-190s reversing on his position at 19,000 feet over Brunswick, Germany. His wingman's P-38 Lightning had exploded 300 yards to his right 45 seconds earlier. Black smoke still marked where Lieutenant Daniel Suarez had died. The radio crackled. "Break left! Break left!" Keller didn't know who was shouting. Didn't matter. 5 Fw-190s were diving toward him from 21,000 feet. Closing speed, 500 mph. Time to firing range, 30 seconds. He was alone. No formation support, no cavalry coming. Just one P-38 Lightning against 5 German fighters who knew exactly how to kill him. The morning air at altitude smelled like oil and cordite. Keller's canopy seal leaked cold air across his right shoulder. His hands were steady on the stick and throttles. His breathing was controlled. But his mind was doing math he didn't like. 5 Fw-190s, 1 P-38, 30 seconds. He reached for his left throttle and prepared to do something no P-38 pilot should ever do. In January 1944, the 8th Air Force lost 42 P-38 Lightnings over Germany. 28 of those 42 were shot down after taking engine damage. The pattern was consistent and brutal. Flak or fighter fire damaged one engine. The pilot feathered the propeller, tried to maintain altitude, called for help. The aircraft yawed hard toward the dead engine. The pilot fought constant rudder pressure. Maximum speed dropped from 400 mph to 220 mph. Climb rate dropped from 2,900 feet per minute to 300 feet per minute. And German fighter pilots knew these numbers as well as American pilots did. Luftwaffe tactical doctrine was simple. Damage one engine on a P-38, and the aircraft was already dead. It just hadn't hit the ground yet. Follow it down, confirm the kill, move to the next target. The math was clean. A P-38 with single-engine operation lost 60% of its power. The asymmetric thrust created constant yaw. The pilot couldn't maneuver aggressively, couldn't evade, couldn't fight back effectively. The aircraft became a target, not a threat. The cost was measured in body bags. Between August 1943 and January 1944, the 8th Air Force lost 114 P-38s to single-engine failures in combat. 114 pilots who tried to limp home on one engine. 63 made it back to England. 51 died trying. 51 pilots who followed doctrine perfectly and died anyway. The Army Air Force's training manual, Section 4-12, covered single-engine operation in combat. The procedure was clear. Feather the damaged engine immediately. Maintain altitude. Stay with the formation. Request fighter escort. The doctrine assumed your formation would protect you. Your escorts would cover you. You would make it home. Reality over Germany in 1944 told a different story. Formations got separated during dogfights. Escorts ran low on fuel and turned back. P-38s with dead engines fell behind, lost visual contact, flew alone. And German fighters waited. They watched for stragglers. They picked them off methodically. Lieutenant Robert Chen learned this on January 6, 1944. Mission to Kiel. Bomber escort. Chen flew with the 364th Fighter Squadron out of RAF Honington. His right engine took flak damage at 22,000 feet over the target area. Shrapnel punctured the oil cooler. Oil pressure dropped. Engine temperature spiked. Chen followed procedure exactly. He feathered the propeller, called his flight leader, reported single-engine operation. His flight leader told him to maintain altitude and stay with the formation. Chen tried. His P-38 yawed right. He pushed left rudder to compensate. The aircraft flew crooked, nose pointing 5 degrees left of its actual flight path. His airspeed bled off. 280 Mach, 260, 240. The formation pulled ahead. Chen called again, requested someone stay with him. His flight leader was 10 miles ahead, engaged with Bf-109s. No one could break off to help. 3 Fw-190s found Chen at 17,000 feet. They'd been orbiting below the bomber's stream, waiting for exactly this situation. A damaged P-38, alone, struggling. They climbed to his altitude, positioned themselves at his 6 o'clock, and they took their time. Chen lasted 4 minutes. He tried turning into them. His P-38 couldn't turn fast enough on one engine. He tried diving away. The Fw-190s followed him down, faster in the dive, more maneuverable. At 8,000 feet, they opened fire. 20mm cannon rounds walked up Chen's fuselage from tail to cockpit. The canopy shattered. The left engine exploded. The aircraft rolled inverted and fell. They found Chen's P-38 in a farmer's field outside Hamburg. Both engines were destroyed, but the accident investigation noted something specific. The left engine showed no combat damage. It had been running when the aircraft hit the ground. That engine was still producing power, still trying to save Chen's life, when he died. Chen had followed the rules perfectly. The rules killed him. Second Lieutenant James Keller grew up in Butte, Montana. 23 years old in February 1944. His father worked the Anaconda copper mine, 3,000 feet underground, swinging a pickaxe in darkness that swallowed flashlight beams. Jimmy learned about survival from watching his father come home every night. At 14, Jimmy worked summer shifts in the mine, surface operations mostly, moving equipment, hauling timber. But one afternoon, he went down with his father's crew to deliver replacement drill bits. The shaft they descended was old. The timber supports showed stress cracks. Small gaps opened between beams where they shouldn't be. The foreman saw the cracks, saw the gaps, and decided they could finish the shift anyway. Meet the quota. Fix the supports tomorrow. Keller's father disagreed. He took a pickaxe and made the cracks wider, took a pry bar and opened the gaps further, made the damage look worse than it was, made it look catastrophic. Then he sent Jimmy running to the surface to report the shaft was collapsing. The foreman ordered evacuation, pulled the entire crew, shut down the shaft. 2 days later, a section of the shaft actually collapsed. 60 feet of tunnel filled with rock and broken timber. 0 casualties because no one was inside. The lesson stayed with Jimmy. Sometimes the only way out of a bad situation is to make it look worse. Make the threat seem bigger than it is. Make people react before the real danger arrives. Looking dead can keep you alive. Keller enlisted in the Army Air Forces in July 1942. Completed flight training at Luke Field, Arizona. He wasn't the best pilot in his class, wasn't the worst. He flew precisely, followed procedures, didn't take unnecessary risks. His instructors called him competent. Not aggressive enough for fighters, they said. Better suited for transports or bombers. Keller requested fighter assignment anyway. Got it. P-38 transition training in March 1943. The Lightning was complicated. 2 engines, counter-rotating propellers, tricycle landing gear, twin-boom design. More systems to manage than single-engine fighters. More things that could go wrong. Keller liked it. The complexity meant options. 2 engines meant redundancy. If one failed, you had another. If both worked, you had power. He deployed to England in November 1943. Assigned to the 364th Fighter Squadron, 8th Air Force. First mission, November 20th, bomber escort to Bremen. He flew number 4 position in a flight of 4 P-38s. 0 contact with enemy fighters. The mission lasted 4 hours and 18 minutes. He saw Germany from 19,000 feet. Saw Bremen burning below. Saw bombers dropping ordnance on factories. Saw flak bursting in black clouds. He didn't fire his guns. Missions 2 through 16 followed the same pattern. Escort duty, defensive patrols, occasional airfield strafing runs. He saw German fighters on 6 missions, engaged on 3, never got a clear shot, never got hit. Other pilots called him Lucky Keller. He wasn't lucky. He was untested. 0 kills, 0 damage taken, 0 situations where his skill or tactics made any difference. But he watched. He watched P-38s with dead engines falling behind formations. Watched them struggle to maintain altitude. Watched German fighters circle them like wolves around wounded prey. And he watched P-38s go down trailing smoke and fire. He'd seen 8 P-38s shot down between November and February. 5 of them had single-engine failures. 5 pilots who tried to get home on 1 engine and didn't make it. Keller started thinking about his father's mine shaft, about making bad situations look worse, about looking dead to stay alive. February 9th, 1944. Mission briefing at 0730 hours. Target: Luftwaffe airfield at Lechfeld, southern Germany. Intelligence expected heavy fighter resistance. German units stationed there included Jagdgeschwader 26, experienced pilots, Fw-190s and Bf-109s. The 364th Fighter Squadron tasked 4 flights with fighter sweep ahead of the main bomber formation. Clear the airspace. Draw off German fighters. Protect the bombers. Keller's flight, 4 P-38s. Flight leader: Captain Theodore Marsh, 31 years old, 11 kills, 29 missions. Marsh flew tight formations, aggressive tactics. He'd lost 2 wingmen in January, both to single-engine failures. He briefed every mission the same way. Stay with your wingman, cover each other. If someone goes down, someone else better have been shooting at them. Keller's wingman: Lieutenant Daniel Suarez, 25 years old, 4 kills, 18 missions. Suarez flew smooth, professional by the book. He and Keller had flown together for 6 weeks. They knew each other's habits, trusted each other. Weather forecast: clear skies, unlimited visibility, perfect conditions for a dogfight. Keller walked to his aircraft at 09:15. Pre-flight inspection took 12 minutes. Both Allison V-1710 engines showed normal oil pressure, normal fuel flow. Control surfaces moved freely. 4 50 caliber machine guns loaded with 1,400 rounds total. 1 20mm cannon loaded with 150 rounds. Full ammunition load. He climbed into the cockpit thinking about Chen. Thinking about that farmer's field outside Hamburg. Thinking about mine shafts and looking dead. 10:32 a.m. Engine start. The twin Allisons roared to life, counter-rotating propellers spinning, 1 clockwise, 1 counterclockwise. The vibration rattled through the airframe. 10:47 a.m. Wheels up. Keller's P-38 lifted off runway 27 at RAF Honington. 4 aircraft in formation, climbed to altitude. Course, southeast toward Germany. 11:45 a.m. Contact with enemy fighters. Captain Marsh's voice crackled over the radio. Bandits, 2 o'clock high, count 12, F-190s. Keller looked right and up. 12 dark shapes at 21,000 feet, 3,000 feet above his flight. Standard German tactic: establish altitude advantage, dive on American fighters, use speed and energy. Marsh called the intercept. We're going up. Stay tight. 4 P-38s climbed toward 12 Fw-190s. The Germans saw them, split into two groups. 6 broke left, 6 broke right. Classic bracket maneuver. Force the Americans to split their attention. Attack from two directions. Marsh took his element toward the left group. Called to Keller, "Take the right group. Stay with Suarez." Keller and Atomes. Suarez broke right, climbed hard, throttles at war emergency power. Manifold pressure, 61 inches. The engine screamed. The 6 Fw-190s on the right didn't run. They reversed, nosed over, dove directly at Keller and Suarez. Speed advantage, altitude advantage, numbers advantage, 6 against 2. Keller's airspeed, 280 mph climbing. Fw-190s, 400 mph diving. Closing speed, 680 mph. Time to contact, 20 seconds. Suarez called over the radio. "I see them, braking left." The 6 Fw-190s didn't split up. 5 stayed locked on Keller. 1 followed Suarez. Suarez broke hard left, pulled into a climbing turn. The single Fw-190 followed him through the turn. At 300 yards, the German opened fire. 20mm cannon rounds, visible as bright orange flashes. Suarez's left engine exploded. The cowling blew off. Black smoke poured out, then orange flame. His P-38 rolled inverted. Keller heard him on the radio. "I'm hit. Engine's gone. The transmission cut off. Suarez's P-38 entered a flat spin. No recovery, no parachute. Just smoke and falling metal and a pilot who'd followed doctrine and died anyway. Impact, 11:46 a.m. in a forest north of Brunswick. Keller saw it happen, couldn't help. Because 5 Fw-190s were now committed to killing him. He broke hard right. Shoved both throttles forward to war emergency power. Nose down into a steep dive. The P-38 accelerated. 320 ampere, 350, 380. The Fw-190s followed. They were faster in the dive. 15,000 feet. 600 yards separation. 14,000 feet, 550 yards. 13,000 feet, 500 yards. Keller could see gun flashes from the lead Fw-190. 20mm cannon rounds and 13mm machine gun fire. Tracers arced past his canopy. Some passed above, some passed below. The Germans were finding their range. 12,000 feet, 450 yards. Keller looked at his airspeed, 395 mph. Looked at his altitude. Looked at the 5 Fw-190s behind him, closing, firing. Standard doctrine said, keep diving, use speed, hope they break off. But they weren't breaking off. They were faster. They were gaining. And at 400 yards, they'd start hitting him. Keller reached for his left throttle. His hand closed around the knob. His thumb touched the friction lock. He thought about Chen. About 51 pilots who died following rules that didn't work. About mine shafts and making bad situations look worse. About looking dead to stay alive. At 12,000 feet over Germany, with 5 Fw-190s 400 yards behind him and closing, Second Lieutenant James Keller pulled his left throttle to idle and did something no sane pilot would ever do in combat. He shut down his engine. The left throttle hit idle. Keller's left hand moved to the propeller control lever. Flipped it to feather position. The propeller blades rotated in their hub, aligned with the airflow. Stopped windmilling. The left Allison V1710 engine went silent. 12,000 feet over Brunswick, Germany. 5 Fw-190s at his 6 o'clock, 400 yards and closing. The P-38 yawed hard left. Asymmetric thrust. The right engine still screaming at war emergency power, the left engine dead. The aircraft wanted to spin. Keller let it happen. He kicked right rudder, released back pressure on the stick. The nose dropped 30 degrees, the left wing fell. The aircraft rolled left, kept rolling, entered a flat spin. Rotation rate, 1 complete revolution every 4 seconds. Descent rate, approximately 1,000 feet every 4.2 seconds. From the outside, from the perspective of 5 German fighter pilots, Keller's P-38 looked exactly like every other Lightning they'd killed over Germany. Catastrophic engine failure, out of control, pilot dead or unconscious, spiraling toward the ground. The lead Fw-190 stopped firing. No point wasting ammunition on a dead aircraft. The other 4 followed his lead. They pulled up from their dive, climbed to 13,000 feet, orbited in a loose formation, watched Keller fall, 11,000 feet. Keller's P-38 rotated left, nose down, spinning. The ground below appeared and disappeared with each rotation. Forest, farm fields, a road. Forest again, 10,000 feet. Keller's right hand gripped the stick, left hand rested on the throttle, both feet on the rudder pedals. He maintained the spin deliberately, kept the rotation stable, kept the descent rate constant, made it look uncontrolled while controlling every input. 9,000 feet. The Fw-190s still orbited above him. Keller could see them during each rotation. 5 aircraft at 13,000 feet. Watching him die. 8,000 feet. His altimeter unwound fast, the vertical speed indicator pegged at maximum descent rate. Outside, the wind screamed past the canopy. Inside, everything rattled. Loose items bounced against bulkheads. His maps slid off the glare shield. A pencil flew past his face. 7,000 feet. Keller counted altitude and time. He'd dropped 5,000 feet in 21 seconds, right where he expected. The math worked. The profile looked right. Now came the hard part. 6,000 feet. 4 Fw-190s climbed away to the south, looking for other targets. 1 Fw-190 remained at 13,000 feet, orbiting, watching, making sure. That German pilot wanted visual confirmation, wanted to see the P-38 hit the ground, wanted to be certain of his kill. He circled slowly, wings level, predictable flight path. Patient, 5,000 feet. Keller's hands were steady. His breathing was controlled. But his heart hammered against his ribs, because at 4,000 feet, he would either recover from this spin or he would die in it. Engine restart at low altitude was not guaranteed. The procedure existed, but combat conditions made everything harder. 4,000 feet. Keller moved. His left hand shoved the throttle forward. Full power. His right hand flipped the propeller control back to normal operation. The propeller blades began to rotate, caught by the airstream. The blades windmilled. The engine turned over. Keller's thumb hit the starter switch. The Allison V-1710 coughed once. Didn't catch. The propeller kept windmilling. Keller hit the starter again, held it, waited. 3,800 feet. The engine coughed twice, caught, roared to life. Power returned. The left engine was running. Keller neutralized the rudder pedals, pulled back on the stick, applied pressure gradually. Too much back pressure would snap the tail off at this airspeed. Too little would let him spin into the ground. The nose came up, 5 degrees, 10 degrees. The spin stopped. The wings leveled at 3,200 feet. He dropped 8,000 feet in 45 seconds. Average descent rate, 10,667 feet per minute. Faster than any controlled descent. Exactly the profile of an uncontrolled crash. Both engines running now, all systems normal. No damage, no German fighters nearby, except one. Keller looked up. The lingering Fw-190 was at 13,000 feet, 3 miles south, climbing away. Slow, predictable. The pilot thought Keller was dead, thought the threat was gone, flying straight and level toward his airfield, conserving fuel, probably already thinking about the kill confirmation interview. Keller looked at his altimeter, 3,500 feet. Looked at the Fw-190, 13,000 feet. 9,500 feet difference. He had full power, element of surprise, and something else. Anger. For Suarez, for Chen, for 51 pilots who died following doctrine that didn't work. For every P-38 pilot who'd tried to limp home on one engine and hadn't made it. Keller pushed both throttles to war emergency power. Manifold pressure, 61 inches. He pointed his nose at the Fw-190 and climbed. The P-38 Lightning climbed at 2,900 feet per minute at full power. Keller maintained airspeed at 240 mph, optimal climb speed. The twin Allisons roared. The aircraft shook with power, 4,000 feet. The Fw-190 was still at 13,000, now 2 miles south. The German pilot hadn't looked back, hadn't checked his 6 o'clock. Why would he? The threat was dead. He'd watched it fall, 5,000 feet. Keller's rate of climb was constant, 2,900 feet per minute. Simple math. He needed 8,000 feet of altitude gain. At current rate, that required 2 minutes, 46 seconds. The Fw-190 was flying away at approximately 280 mph. In 2 minutes, 46 seconds, the German would be 7.7 miles away. Too far for interception. Unless the German slowed down. Unless he circled back. Unless he stayed in the area looking for other targets, 6,000 feet. The Fw-190 turned. Lazy banking turn to the left. The pilot was orbiting, staying in the area, probably searching for the rest of Keller's flight, probably hoping for another easy kill. 7,000 feet. Keller adjusted his climb angle. Steeper now. Airspeed dropped to 220 mph. Rate of climb decreased slightly, but his flight path intersected the Fw-190's orbit. He was climbing directly beneath the German's position. 8,000 feet. The Fw-190 completed its turn. Heading north now, straight and level, 13,000 feet. The German was directly above Keller, 1 mile horizontal separation, 5,000 feet vertical separation, 9,000 feet. Keller was in the Fw-190's blind spot, directly below. The cockpit of a Fw-190 had limited downward visibility. The pilot would have to look straight down past his own fuselage to see Keller, and he had no reason to look down. The threat was dead. He'd watched it crash. 10,000 feet. Keller leveled off briefly, checked his gun sight. The reflector sight glowed orange. Pipper centered. He checked his gun switches, all armed. 4 50 caliber machine guns, 1 20mm cannon, 1,400 rounds 50 cal remaining, 150 rounds 20mm. He resumed his climb. 11,000 feet. The Fw-190 was now at his 11 o'clock high, 1,000 feet above him. Keller adjusted his heading, turned left slightly, put the German directly ahead and above, 12,000 feet. Range, 1,200 feet horizontal, 1,000 feet vertical. Total range, approximately 1,560 feet, beyond effective firing range for his guns. But the Fw-190 pilot finally saw him. The German banked hard right, started to break away. But the maneuver was defensive, reactive. The pilot was surprised. He'd thought Keller was dead. His decision-making was behind the timeline. He was reacting to a threat he didn't expect. Keller didn't chase the turn. He continued climbing. 12,500 feet. The Fw-190's brake turn bled energy. The German's airspeed dropped, his climb angle decreased. He was now co-altitude with Keller. Same speed. No advantage. The Fw-190 pilot realized his mistake. He rolled out of the turn, pushed his nose down, tried to dive away. Standard F-190 tactic. Use superior dive speed to disengage. But Keller anticipated the move. He rolled inverted. Pulled through. His nose came down 30 degrees. He was diving before the German finished his roll. The Fw-190 entered its dive. Keller was already in his. Same dive angle, same airspeed building, range closed, 1,000 feet, 900, 800. The F-190 pilot looked back. Keller could see him turning his head, could see the white flash of his face in the cockpit. The German pushed his stick forward. Steeper dive, 45 degrees nose down, airspeed building faster, 700 feet. Keller matched the dive angle. His airspeed, 420 mm. Fw-190, 430 mm. The German was slightly faster, but not fast enough to open the range. 600 feet. Keller's gun sight pipper tracked the Fw-190. He led the target. Calculated deflection. The German was diving straight ahead. No deflection needed. Pure pursuit. 500 feet. Keller's right thumb moved to the firing button. 450 feet. He pressed. 4 .50 caliber machine guns fired simultaneously. 70 rounds per second combined rate of fire. The guns hammered. The P-38 shook with recoil. Tracers reached out. Bright lines connecting Keller's aircraft to the Fw-190. 3-second burst. 210 rounds fired. Most missed. The range was long. The deflection angles were small, but present due to relative motion. But some rounds connected. Hits sparkled on the Fw-190's left wing root. 50 caliber rounds punched through aluminum skin, penetrated internal structure. One round severed a control cable. Another punctured a fuel line. A third hit the wing spar. The Fw-190's left wing folded upward. The metal buckled at the root. The wing separated from the fuselage. The aircraft tumbled. Lost all aerodynamic control. Entered an inverted flat spin. No parachute. The pilot either died in the initial hits or couldn't get out during the tumble. The Fw-190 fell 3,000 feet in 8 seconds. Impact in the same forest where Suarez had died 7 minutes earlier. Keller pulled out of his dive at 9,000 feet. Leveled off. Both engines running smooth. Fuel state, sufficient to reach England. Ammunition expenditure, 87 rounds 50 caliber, 0 rounds 20 millimeter. 1 Fw-190 destroyed. His first kill. He'd shut down his own engine in combat. Entered an uncontrolled spin. Dropped 8,000 feet. Recovered at low altitude. Climbed back up. Killed the pilot who thought he was dead, using a tactic that violated every regulation in the Army Air Force's manual. Keller turned northwest. Course for England. He climbed back to 15,000 feet. Scanned the sky. No other aircraft visible. The dogfight had scattered. The bombers were 30 miles south, continuing toward their target. Captain Marsh's flight was somewhere east, engaged or aggressing. The radio was chaos. Multiple transmissions overlapping. Pilots calling contacts, calling for help, calling damage reports. Keller didn't transmit. He flew northwest alone, maintained altitude, kept scanning for threats. His hands were shaking now. Adrenaline dump. The immediate danger was past. His body was processing what had happened. He deliberately shut down an engine. In combat. With 5 enemy fighters shooting at him. Every instructor who'd ever taught him would call it insane. Every manual would call it forbidden. Every regulation would call it grounds for court-martial. But he was alive. and Suarez was dead. And the difference was that Keller had broken the rules. He crossed the French coast at 14:52 hours, crossed the English Channel, landed at RAF Honiton at 15:23 hours. 3 hours, 36 minutes total mission time. Ground crew swarmed his aircraft. They counted bullet holes, found none. Checked both engines, both running perfectly. Measured ammunition expenditure. 87 rounds fired, 1 kill claimed. The crew chief, a sergeant named Williams, looked at Keller as he climbed out of the cockpit. "You get separated from your flight, Lieutenant?" "Yes." "Suarez?" "He didn't make it." Williams' face tightened. He nodded. Didn't ask details. Ground crew learned not to ask too many questions when pilots came back alone. Captain Marsh was waiting at the flight line. His P-38 had landed 10 minutes earlier. His face was hard, angry. He walked toward Keller. "Where's Suarez?" "He went down over Brunswick. Didn't see a shoot." "And you got separated how?" 5 Fw-190s on my tail. Had to break off." "And you made it back?" "Yes, sir." "With a kill?" "Yes, sir." Marsh stared at him for 15 seconds. His jaw worked. He was grinding his teeth. Finally, "Debrief in 30 minutes. Be ready to explain how you survived 5 Fw-190s alone." Keller nodded. Marsh walked away toward the operations building. 30 minutes later, Keller sat in the intelligence debriefing room. Major Robert Hastings conducted the interview. Hastings was 41 years old, 364th Fighter Group intelligence officer. He'd been debriefing pilots for 18 months. He'd heard every survival story, every impossible escape, every lucky break. Hastings opened a folder. "Walk me through it, Lieutenant. 5 Fw-190s on your tail. What did you do?" Keller hesitated. What he'd done violated regulations. But he was alive. And lying in a combat debrief was also against regulations. He told the truth, explained the feathered propeller, the flat spin, the recovery at 4,000 feet, the climb back up, the kill. Hastings wrote everything down, didn't interrupt. His expression didn't change. When Keller finished, Hastings put down his pen. "That's the most insane thing I've heard in this war. It worked. Once. You did it once. That doesn't mean it works. If I hadn't done it, I'd be dead." Hastings leaned back. "If you do it again and that engine doesn't restart, you'll be dead anyway. At least I'll have tried something other than waiting to die." Hastings closed the folder. "I'm not putting this in the official report. If command finds out you deliberately shut down an engine, they'll ground you, maybe court-martial you. What about the kill? The kill goes in. How you survive doesn't." Hastings stood. "Dismissed, Lieutenant." Keller left the debriefing room. The official combat report would read, "Lieutenant Keller evaded enemy fighters through aggressive maneuvering, achieved favorable position, destroyed 1 Fw-190. No mention of the dead engine dive, no mention of the flat spin, no mention of 8,000 feet in 45 seconds. The truth stayed classified under insane tactics that worked once. But word spreads fast among pilots, and 36 hours later, everyone in the 364th Fighter Squadron would know exactly what Keller had done. That evening, the pilot's mess at RAF Honiton smelled like powdered eggs and burnt coffee. Keller sat with his squadron at a long wooden table scarred with initials and cigarette burns. 23 pilots, 24 yesterday. Suarez's chair was empty. Lieutenant Thomas Wade sat across from Keller. Wade was 26, from Philadelphia, 8 kills, 31 missions. He'd flown on Keller's wing twice before. He watched Keller eat for 2 minutes without speaking. Then, "How'd you get away from 5 Fw-190s?" Keller drank his coffee, said nothing. Wade leaned forward. "Come on, Keller, 5 of them. You had to do something." Lieutenant Frank Morrison, sitting to Wade's left, spoke up. Morrison was 24, Chicago, 3 kills, 19 missions. "He probably just dove, used speed." Wade shook his head. "I saw his aircraft land. No bullet holes, no damage. 5 Fw-190s shooting at you and you don't take a single round? That's not diving, that's something else." Keller set down his coffee cup. "I got lucky." "Bullshit." Wade's voice carried edge now. "I've seen lucky. Lucky is 1 round that should have killed you but missed by 3 inches. You didn't get hit even once. 5 Fw-190s. That's not luck, that's..." Captain Marsh walked past the table, heard the conversation, stopped. "Keller, outside." Keller followed Marsh into the February evening. The air was cold, damp, smelled like aviation fuel and wet grass. Marsh walked 20 yards from the mess hall before stopping. Turned to face Keller. "Wade's going to keep asking. Morrison, too. The whole squadron will hear something happened. Major Hastings said not to talk about it. Hastings wants to protect you from command. I want to protect my pilots from dying." Marsh stepped closer. "If you found something that works, something that saves lives, I need to know." Keller explained again. The feathered prop, the flat spin, the recovery at 4,000 feet. Marsh listened without interrupting. When Keller finished, Marsh was quiet for 30 seconds. Then, "Show me." "Sir?" "Tomorrow, training flight. Just you and me. Show me this dead engine dive. It's against regulations. So is dying when you don't have to." February 10th, 1944. 09:15 hours. Keller and Marsh took off from RAF Huntington in 2 P-38s. No mission. No bombers to escort. Just empty sky over the North Sea. They climbed to 15,000 feet. The morning was clear. Visibility unlimited. Water below reflected gray winter light. No other aircraft visible in any direction. Marsh's voice crackled over the radio. "All right, Keller. Show me." "You sure about this, sir? If it doesn't work, I want to know before other pilots try it. If it does work, I want to know so I can teach it." Keller pulled his left throttle to idle, feathered the left propeller, kicked right rudder, released back pressure on the stick. The P-38 yawed left, nose dropped, entered the flat spin. 14,000 feet, 13,000, 12,000. The aircraft rotated left, stable, predictable. Descent rate approximately 1,000 feet every 4.2 seconds. Marsh orbited at 15,000 feet. Watching. His P-38 flew lazy circles. Keller could see him during each rotation of the spin, 10,000 feet, 9,000, 8,000. Keller counted altitude, counted rotation. The spin felt controlled, mechanical, like a procedure anyone could learn. 7,000 feet, 6,000, 5,000. At 5,000 feet, Keller began recovery. Throttle forward. Propeller control to normal. Starter engaged. The left engine coughed, caught, roared to life. Power returned. Keller neutralized rudder, pulled back on the stick. The spin stopped. Wings leveled at 4,200 feet. He climbed back to 15,000 feet. Rejoined Marsh. Both P-38s flew in formation. Marsh's voice over radio. "How many times have you practiced that?" "Twice. Yesterday in combat. Today just now." "You did that yesterday for the first time in combat?" "Yes, sir." "And it worked?" "Yes, sir." Long silence. Then Marsh. "Do it again." "Sir, if this is going to save pilots, it needs to work every time, not just twice. Do it again." Keller did it again. Feather, spin, fall, recover at 4,000 feet. Climbed back to 15,000. Marsh. Again. Third time. Same procedure, same result. Recovery at 4,100 feet. Fourth time. Marsh changed the parameters. Recover at 3,000 feet this time. Keller entered the spin. Fell through 12,000, 10,000, 8,000. At 5,000 feet, he didn't begin recovery. Kept falling. 6,000, 5,000, 4,000, 3,500. Now he moved. Throttle forward, starter engaged, engine caught, recovery initiated. Wings level at 3,000 feet. Climbed back up. Marsh. Again, 2,000 feet. Keller hesitated. 2,000 feet left almost no margin. If the engine didn't start immediately, if the recovery took 3 extra seconds, he'd impact the water. But he did it. Fell through altitude. Began recovery at 2,800 feet. Wings level at 2,100 feet. His hands were shaking when he climbed back to 15,000. Marsh's voice was different now, harder. "That's the floor. Any lower, you won't have time if something goes wrong." They flew back to RAF Huntington. Landed at 11:30 hours. 2 hours 15 minutes of training flight. 5 dead engine dives. 5 successful recoveries. Marsh found Major Hastings in the operations building. Told him the dead engine dive worked. Told him it was repeatable. Told him other pilots needed to learn it. Hastings sat behind his desk. His face showed nothing. "Command will never approve teaching pilots to shut down engines in combat." "Then we don't tell Command." Hastings leaned forward. "You want to run an unauthorized training program, teaching tactics that violate regulations, without official approval. I want pilots to stop dying when they don't have to. And when one of your pilots crashes because his engine won't restart? When someone dies practicing your insane tactic? What then?" Marsh didn't answer immediately. He looked at the wall behind Hastings. Squadron casualties were posted there. Typed lists, names and dates. Suarez was already on the February list. Marsh spoke quietly. "Then at least they died trying something other than following doctrine that kills them anyway." Hastings was silent for 20 seconds. Then he opened a drawer, pulled out a folder. "I never heard about this. If someone crashes, I don't know why. If Command asks questions, I have no information. Understood?" "Understood, sir." February 11th through February 28th. 18 days. Captain Marsh trained every pilot in the 364th Fighter Squadron. Unofficial training flights over the North Sea. 2 aircraft at a time. 15,000 feet. Practice the dead engine dive until it became muscle memory. Feather the prop. Enter the spin. Count altitude. Recover at 4,000 feet minimum. 23 pilots total, not counting Marsh and Keller. 23 men who needed to survive what Suarez hadn't. Not all of them mastered the maneuver immediately. Lieutenant David Park, 22 years old, Portland, Oregon, couldn't get his engine to restart reliably. On his 3rd practice attempt, the left engine wouldn't catch. He fell through 4,000 feet, 3,000, 2,000. At 1,500 feet, the engine finally fired. He recovered at 900 feet above the water. Marsh met him after landing. "You're dropping too fast before recovery. Starting the engine takes time. Begin recovery at 5,000 if you can't get reliable restarts." Park practiced 4 more times. Got better. But he never achieved the same consistency as other pilots. Marsh told him, "Don't use it unless you have no choice. If you have altitude and time, follow standard doctrine." Lieutenant Sarah Chen, no relation to Robert Chen, flew her first practice dive on February 14th. 23 years old, San Francisco, California. 4 kills, 17 missions. She executed the dead engine dive perfectly on first attempt. Feathered at 15,000 feet. Stable spin. Engine restart at 4,200 feet. Recovery smooth and controlled. Climbed back to altitude. Marsh's voice over radio. Natural talent. Chen practiced 3 more times that day. All successful. Average recovery altitude, 4,100 feet. She had the best consistency in the squadron, except for Keller. By February 20th, 17 pilots could execute the dead engine dive reliably. 6 still struggled with engine restarts or recovery timing. The pilots started calling it Keller's drop. Keller heard the name in the mess hall on February 22nd. Lieutenant Morrison used it casually. Wade's practicing Keller's drop again tomorrow. Wants to get his recovery altitude down to 3,000. Keller looked up from his meal. Don't call it that. Morrison. Why not? You invented it. I didn't invent survival. I just did what I had to do. Wade, sitting nearby. You gave the rest of us a way to not die. That's worth naming. Keller shook his head. It's not mine. It's everyone's. Anyone who uses it owns it. But the name stuck. By February 28th, every pilot in the squadron called it Keller's drop. Even Marsh used the term. Other squadrons noticed something had changed in the 364th. Pilots who got separated from formations came home alive. Pilots who got bounced by superior numbers survived. Kill ratios improved. February statistics for the 364th Fighter Squadron. 0 P-38s lost to single-engine failure in combat. Compared to January, 3 P-38s lost. Compared to December, 4 P-38s lost. The 377th Fighter Squadron, stationed at the same base, lost 2 P-38s to single-engine failures in February. The 402nd Fighter Squadron lost 3. The 364th lost 0. Colonel James Palmer, commander of the 65th Fighter Wing, reviewed the statistics on March 1st. Called Captain Marsh to his office. Palmer was 43 years old. West Point class of 1923, career officer. He'd flown P-40s in North Africa before transferring to England. He understood tactics, understood numbers. He looked at the February casualty reports. Your squadron had 17 pilots separated from formations last month. All 17 came home. 3 other squadrons had similar separation incidents. 9 of those pilots didn't come home. What changed? Marsh kept his expression neutral. Better tactics, sir. What tactics? Aggressive evasion. When outnumbered, we teach pilots to use unconventional maneuvers. Break German fighter attack patterns. Force them to disengage or make mistakes. Palmer leaned back. Aggressive evasion. That's vague, Captain. It's effective, sir. Can you teach it to other squadrons? Marsh hesitated. Teaching Keller's drop to other units meant more pilots learning unauthorized tactics. Meant bigger risk if command discovered what they were doing. But it also meant more pilots surviving. Yes, sir, I can teach it. Good. The 377th and 402nd lost 5 pilots last month to situations your squadron survived. I want their pilots trained on whatever you're doing. By March 5th, pilots from 2 other squadrons were flying training missions with Marsh and Keller. Learning the dead engine dive, practicing over the North Sea, 15,000 feet. Feather, spin, fall, recover. Lieutenant James Barlow, 377th Squadron, struggled with the spin entry. He couldn't get the aircraft into a stable flat spin. His P-38 would roll too far, enter a steep spiral instead of a flat spin. Recovery was harder from steep spirals, more violent, more disorienting. Keller flew with him on March 6th, demonstrated the technique. Don't kick too much rudder, just enough to yaw the aircraft. Let the asymmetric thrust do the work. The dead engine creates natural yaw. You're just helping it start. Barlow tried again. Better. Still not perfect, but better. Lieutenant Paul McCarthy, 402nd Squadron, mastered the dive in 2 days, 3 practice attempts, all successful. He told Keller, "I grew up flying crop dusters in Kansas. We did spins for fun. This is just a spin with a purpose." By March 15th, 41 pilots from 3 squadrons could execute Keller's drop. Still unofficial, still unauthorized, still saving lives. March 4th, 1944. Mission to Berlin. Heavy bomber escort. Expected fighter resistance. Severe. Lieutenant Frank Morrison flew number 3 in Captain Marsh's flight. 4 P-38s. Altitude 22,000 feet. At 11:17 hours, Morrison's flight engaged 12 Bf-109s over Brandenburg. The dogfight scattered the formation. Morrison ended up alone at 19,000 feet. 4 Bf-109s reversed on his position. Morrison broke hard, dove, pushed throttles to war emergency power. The Bf-109s followed. They were faster in the dive. At 14,000 feet, Morrison had a choice. Follow doctrine, keep diving, hope they break off, or use Keller's drop. He chose the drop. Left throttle to idle, feather the prop, kick rudder, enter the spin. The P-38 yawed left, nose dropped, rotation started. Stable flat spin. Descent rate, 1,000 feet per 4 seconds. The Bf-109s pulled up. Climbed to 15,000 feet. Orbited. Watched Morrison fall. German pilots claimed the kill. Broke off to find other targets. Morrison fell through 12,000, 10,000, 8,000. At 6,000 feet, 3 Bf-109s had climbed away. 1 remained, watching from 15,000 feet. Morrison continued the spin. 5,000 feet, 4,500, 4,000. Now he recovered. Throttle forward, starter engaged, engine caught, pulled out at 3,600 feet. Both engines running, all systems normal. The remaining Bf-109 was still at 15,000 feet. Orbiting, searching for other American fighters. Morrison didn't climb back up immediately. He stayed low, 3,600 feet. Throttles at 70% power. Airspeed, 180 mop. He flew straight and level, heading northwest toward England. The profile of a damaged aircraft, barely maintaining flight. Pilot struggling, engine damaged. Trying to limp home. The Bf-109 pilot saw him. Descended from 15,000 feet. Came down to Morrison's altitude. Got behind him at 6 o'clock. Range, approximately 2,000 feet. The German didn't open fire. Didn't attack immediately. He followed Morrison. Watched him. Waited for the P-38 to crash or for Morrison to bail out. Conserving ammunition. Being patient. Morrison watched the Bf-109 in his rearview mirror. Counted distance. 2,000 feet, 1,800, 1,600, 1,400. The German was closing slowly, cautiously. 1,200 feet, 1,000. The Bf-109 pilot wanted visual confirmation, wanted to see the smoking engine, the battle damage, wanted to be certain this P-38 was dying. At 800 feet, Morrison moved. Both throttles to war emergency power. Hard climbing left turn, the P-38 snapped around. 90 degrees of bank, nose up 30 degrees, full power. The twin Allisons screamed. The Bf-109 pilot had maybe 2 seconds to react. He hadn't expected the damaged P-38 to maneuver aggressively, hadn't expected full power, hadn't expected threat. Morrison completed the turn, rolled out. The Bf-109 was now in his gun sight. Range, 400 yards. No deflection needed. Pure pursuit. Morrison opened fire. 4 50 caliber machine guns, 1 20mm cannon. 3-second burst. Tracers connected Morrison's P-38 to the Bf-109. Hits sparkled across the German's engine cowling. The Bf-109's engine exploded. Orange fireball. Black smoke. The aircraft nosed down. No recovery, no parachute. Impact in a forest below Brandenburg. Morrison climbed away, rejoined formation, made it back to England, landed at RAF Honington at 14:31 hours. He found Keller in the maintenance area that evening. Keller was inspecting his P-38's left engine. Routine maintenance check. Morrison walked up, stopped 3 feet away. It works. Keller looked up. I know. No, I mean the whole thing works. The drop, the recovery, the counter. Morrison's voice was tight. Controlled emotion. You saved my life. Keller closed the engine cowling. You saved your own life. You executed the maneuver. You made the decisions. You showed me how. And now you can show someone else. Morrison nodded, stood there for another 5 seconds, then walked away. That evening, Morrison told the entire 364th Squadron about his engagement, described the drop, described the follow, described the reversal and kill. The pilots asked questions. How long did the Bf-109 follow before closing? 2 minutes. How close did he let the German get? 800 feet. Was the reversal difficult? No. The P-38 had full power. The maneuver was standard. The surprise was what made it work. Lieutenant Wade asked the key question. So now we have 2 tactics. The drop to escape, the counter to kill them if they follow. Morrison. Exactly. Wade looked at Keller. You invented both? Keller shook his head. I invented the drop. Morrison invented the counter by using his head in combat. That's how this works. Someone finds something that works. Someone else improves it. Everyone learns. Everyone survives. But word had already spread through the squadron. Keller's drop now included the counter tactic, the low and slow bait, the sudden reversal, the kill. And German pilots were about to learn that following crippled P-38s was no longer safe. March 15, 1944. Luftwaffe intelligence officer Hauptmann Klaus Weber sat in an office at Jever Airfield, northwest Germany, reviewing combat reports from 3 Jagdgeschwader units. 27 reports filed between March 1st and March 14th. 14 days of combat over Germany and occupied France. Weber was 34 years old. He'd flown Bf-109s in Spain during the Civil War. Shot down 3 Republican aircraft, transferred to intelligence in 1941 after taking flak damage that left him with permanent nerve damage in his left hand. Couldn't fly fighters anymore. Could analyze how others flew them. He read the reports carefully, made notes, underlined specific passages. March 3rd. American Lightning observed entering flat spin after engine failure. Aircraft descended through clouds. No impact observed. Kill claimed. March 6th. P-38 with damaged engine and uncontrolled spin followed to 4,000 meters. Aircraft disappeared into haze. Probable destruction. March 8th. Lightning in flat spin left engine smoking. Pilot appeared unconscious. Watched aircraft descend to approximately 1,000 meters. Disengaged to pursue other targets. March 11th. 2 P-38s observed spinning. 1 crashed. 2nd disappeared behind terrain. Both claimed as destroyed. Weber noticed the pattern. 12 P-38s reported entering flat spins over Germany in 2 weeks. German pilots claimed 12 kills, but only 5 impacts were visually confirmed. 7 P-38s entered spins and disappeared, reported as destroyed but not confirmed. That bothered Weber. Luftwaffe doctrine required visual confirmation or wreckage confirmation for kill credits. 7 pilots had claimed kills without seeing impacts. That was acceptable if the aircraft was clearly doomed, on fire, breaking apart, pilot bailing out. But these reports described intact aircraft in spins. Spins that looked fatal but might not be. Weber pulled casualty reports from 8th Air Force radio intercepts. German listening posts monitored American emergency frequencies. Recorded distress calls, tracked which units lost aircraft. Between March 1st and March 14th, American radio traffic confirmed 5 P-38 losses over Germany. 5 confirmed losses, but German pilots claimed 12. 7 P-38s that German pilots thought they destroyed had apparently survived. Weber wrote a summary report, sent it to Luftwaffe Fighter Command with a recommendation. American Lightning aircraft may be feigning engine damage and uncontrolled, spins as evasion tactic. Recommend pilots maintain visual contact with spinning aircraft until impact confirmation or continue engagement if aircraft recovers. The report reached Jagdgeschwader headquarters on March 17th. New tactical directive issued on March 18th to JG-2, JG-26, JG-27. American Lightning aircraft observed simulating engine failure. Do not assume spinning aircraft are destroyed. Confirm kills visually or follow to impact. If aircraft recovers, engage immediately. The directive changed German tactics. Pilots now followed P-38s in flat spins, stayed close, watched for recovery. If the engines restarted, if the spin stopped, they attacked immediately. Keller's drop became less effective. Not useless, just harder, more dangerous. Captain Marsh learned about the directive on March 20th. Major Hastings showed him translated German radio intercepts. The text was clear. German pilots knew about the dead engine dive. They'd adapted. Marsh read the translation twice. Then, how many pilots did we save before they figured it out? Hastings checked his records. February 9th through March 14th. 34 days. Pilots using Keller's drop. 16 separate incidents. Successful recoveries. 13. Failed recoveries. 3. All 3 pilots whose engines didn't restart had bailed out. All 3 survived. Captured, but alive. Kills achieved after recovery. 7 German fighters destroyed by P-38 pilots who'd used the drop, then climbed back up. Pilots saved. 13 who would have died following standard doctrine. Hastings. 13 pilots who should be dead are alive. Marsh. And now the Germans will follow them down and kill them anyway. Maybe. Or maybe we adapt again. Marsh looked at him. You have an idea? No, but Keller might. March 21st, 1944. Squadron meeting. Ready room at RAF Honington. 26 pilots present. Captain Marsh stood at the front beside a blackboard with rough diagrams of P-38s and German fighters. The Germans know about Keller's drop. They're following us down now, watching for recovery. Ready to shoot the moment engines restart. The tactic still works, but it's riskier. Lieutenant Wade. So we stop using it? No, we change it. Marsh looked around the room. The Germans adapted to our tactic. Now we adapt to theirs. Question is how? The pilots offered suggestions. Lieutenant Chen proposed recovering at higher altitude, earlier restart, more separation from pursuing fighters. Marsh. Then they're still close enough to shoot you. You restart at 8,000 feet instead of 4,000. They're at 10,000. still within firing range. Lieutenant Park suggested spiraling instead of flat spinning. Make it look different. Maybe Germans wouldn't recognize it. Marsh. Same profile. They'll still follow. Different spin characteristics don't change their tactical response. Lieutenant Morrison proposed recovering, then immediately diving again. Make Germans think the recovery failed. Make them think the aircraft is still out of control. Marsh. That costs altitude you might need. If you're at 4,000 feet and dive again, you're at 2,000. Not enough margin for error. The room went quiet. Pilots thinking. No one had a clean answer. Keller sat in the back. He'd been listening without speaking, thinking about Morrison's engagement on March 4th. Morrison had used the drop successfully, but Morrison had done something else. He'd flown low and slow after recovery, made the Bf-109 comfortable, made the German pilot think Morrison was no threat, then reversed and killed him. Keller spoke. What if we make it look worse? Everyone turned. Marsh. Explain. The Germans follow us down because they want to confirm the kill. What if we give them the confirmation they want? What if after recovery, after the engine restarts, we don't climb? We stay low, fly slow, make it look like we're damaged, struggling, barely able to stay in the air. Wait, they'll shoot us. Maybe. Or maybe they'll think we're already dying. Maybe they'll follow us, watch us, wait for us to crash, save their ammunition for targets that aren't already doomed. Morrison leaned forward. And when they get comfortable, when they think we're no threat, we reverse on them. Keller nodded. Exactly. Marsh studied Keller for 10 seconds, then smiled. That's even crazier than the dead engine dive. Will it work? Let's find out. March 22nd, 1944. Training flight over the North Sea. Keller and Marsh. 15,000 feet. Clear morning. Unlimited visibility. Keller executed the dead engine dive. Standard procedure. Feathered left prop. Entered flat spin. Fell through altitude. Recovered at 4,000 feet. But instead of climbing immediately, he stayed low. Throttles at 70% power. Airspeed, 180 mph. He flew straight and level. Wings stable. Heading northwest toward England. From altitude, from Marsh's perspective at 15,000 feet, Keller's P-38 looked damaged. Flying slowly. Not maneuvering. The profile of an aircraft barely maintaining flight. Pilot struggling with controls. Engine damaged, but running. Trying to limp home before something failed completely. Marsh played the German fighter. Descended from 15,000 feet. Got behind Keller at 6 o'clock. Range, 4,000 feet. He followed. Watched. Waited. After 30 seconds, Marsh called over radio. I'm bored. If I were German, I'd be looking for other targets by now. Keller, or you'd want to confirm the kill. Make sure I actually crash. I'd move closer then. Get visual confirmation of damage. How close? Maybe 1,000 feet? Close enough to see your engine smoking or your control surfaces damaged. And then I'd do this. Keller shoved both throttles to war emergency power. Pulled hard into a climbing left turn. The P-38 snap-rolled. 90 degrees of bank, nose up 30 degrees, full power singing through both Allisons. The aircraft reversed course in 3 seconds. Suddenly, Keller was pointing directly at Marsh. In combat, Marsh would have guns on him. No time to evade, no warning. Just sudden threat where no threat existed 2 seconds earlier. Marsh's voice over radio. Jesus, that would work. They flew back to 15,000 feet. Practiced the sequence again. Keller executed the drop. Recovered. Flew low and slow. Marsh followed from behind. Got to 1,200 feet. Keller reversed. Same result. Third time, Marsh closed to 800 feet before Keller reversed. Fourth time, 600 feet. Each time, the reversal caught Marsh unprepared. Each time, Keller would have had guns on target in combat. After the fourth repetition, Marsh called, "The key is making them comfortable. Make them think you're no threat. Make them think you're dying. Then kill them." They landed at 11:45 hours. Marsh immediately called a squadron meeting. By March 30th, 12 pilots had practiced the counter tactic. The low and slow bait. The sudden reversal. All 12 could execute it consistently. By April 5th, 7 pilots had used it successfully in combat. March 25th, 1944. Mission to Schweinfurt. Lieutenant Morrison's engagement. 4 Bf-109s bouncing him. Morrison used the drop. 3 Bf-109s claimed the kill and left. 1 stayed to watch. Morrison flew low and slow. The Bf-109 followed. Got to 800 feet. Morrison reversed. 3-second burst. The Bf-109 exploded. Morrison escaped. March 28th. Lieutenant Chen over Augsburg. 6 Fw-190s engaged her flight. Chen got separated. 2 Fw-190s pursued. Chen executed the drop. 1 Fw-190 climbed away. 1 followed. Chen flew the low and slow profile for 90 seconds. The Fw-190 closed to 1,000 feet. Chen reversed. Killed the German with a 4-second burst. Both engines on the Fw-190 caught fire. Aircraft crashed into a factory complex. April 2nd. Lieutenant Wade near Munich. 3 Bf-109s jumped him at 18,000 feet. Wade used the drop. All 3 Bf-109s initially followed him down. 2 broke off at 8,000 feet. 1 continued following. Wade recovered at 4,000 feet, flew low and slow. The Bf-109 descended to Wade's altitude, got behind him at 1,400 feet. Wade reversed, damaged the Bf-109's left wing. The German broke off smoking. Wade claimed 1 probable. April 7th. Lieutenant Park over Stuttgart. 5 Fw-190s engaged him. Park executed the drop. His engine didn't restart immediately. He fell through 4,000 feet, 3,000, 2,000. Engine finally caught at 1,800 feet. Recovered at 1,200 feet. 3 Fw-190s had claimed the kill and departed. 2 remained to confirm. Park flew low. The 2 Fw-190s followed cautiously. 1 closed to 900 feet. Park reversed, opened fire. Missed. The Fw-190 broke hard right. His wingman also broke off. Both Germans climbed away. Park escaped without achieving a kill, but survived a situation that should have killed him. By April 10th, 1944, 7 pilots had used the counter tactic successfully. Combined results: 5 German fighters destroyed, 2 damaged. 0 American losses during counter tactic execution. The dead engine dive plus counter tactic had killed 19 German fighters total. American P-38 losses during these engagements: 2 aircraft. Both were pilots whose engines failed to restart. Both pilots bailed out. Both survived as prisoners of war. April 10th, 1944. 8th Air Force Headquarters, High Wycombe, England. Colonel William Kepner, 8th Fighter Command, reviewed squadron statistics from February through March. The 364th Fighter Squadron showed unusual performance. Kill ratios up 43% compared to December through January. Loss ratios down 62%. Something had changed. Kepner wanted to know what. He sent investigators to RAF Honington on April 12th. 2 majors from fighter operations. They interviewed pilots, reviewed mission reports, asked about tactics and training. Captain Marsh met them in the operations building. The majors introduced themselves, asked direct questions. Your squadron is outperforming every other P-38 unit in England. What are you doing differently? Marsh explained. The dead engine dive, the counter tactic, the training program, all of it. He didn't hide anything, didn't minimize the risk, told them exactly what his pilots were doing. The majors listened without interrupting, made notes. When Marsh finished, the senior major, a man named Patterson, 40 years old, career officer, spoke carefully. You're teaching pilots to deliberately shut down engines in combat. Yes, sir. That violates every regulation in the Army Air Force's manual. Yes, sir. Patterson looked at his notes. It's reckless, dangerous, could get pilots killed. It saved 13 pilots who would have died following standard doctrine. 13 pilots? Or 13 lucky breaks? Marsh pulled out a folder. Statistics, mission reports, combat documentation. 19 kills using the tactic, 2 losses. Both pilots survived. Those aren't lucky breaks, sir. That's a tactical advantage. The other major, a younger man named Curtis, spoke up. Even if it works, we can't officially approve it. If we put this in a training manual, we're authorizing pilots to take insane risks. If someone dies practicing this, their families will want answers. Command will want answers. Marsh. And if we don't teach it, pilots will keep dying following tactics that don't work. Patterson stood, walked to the window, looked out at the flight line. 12 P-38s parked in neat rows. Pilots walking between aircraft. Ground crews performing maintenance. The machinery of war continuing. Patterson turned back. What do you want from us? Marsh. Don't stop us. Let us keep training pilots. Let the tactics spread to other squadrons. If it stops working, we'll stop using it. If it keeps working, more pilots go home alive. Patterson and Curtis looked at each other. Silent communication. Then Patterson spoke to Marsh. I never heard about this. Curtis never heard about this. We came to Huntington to review your maintenance procedures. Your tactics are your business. Understood? Understood, sir. If someone crashes practicing your tactic, we don't know why. If command asks questions, we have no information. Yes, sir. And if your statistics keep improving, other squadrons will notice. They'll ask questions. You'll teach them. And none of it will be official. That's how it's been working, sir. Patterson nodded. Good. Keep it that way. The majors left. Their official report stated, 364th Fighter Squadron demonstrates excellent maintenance procedures and pilot discipline. Recommend no changes to current operations. No mention of the dead engine dive. No mention of counter tactics. No mention of unauthorized training. But Patterson made one phone call before leaving England. Called the 355th Fighter Squadron commander. Told him Captain Marsh had some interesting ideas about aggressive evasion. Suggested he contact Marsh directly. By April 20th, pilots from the 355th were training with Marsh. May 1944. Pilot rotation cycle. Combat experienced pilots transferred to training command in the United States. New pilots arrived in England. The rotation brought 364th Squadron pilots back to stateside assignments. Lieutenant Chen received orders. Report to P-38 Training Command, Orlando, Florida. Instructor duty. Teaching new pilots before they deployed to combat theaters. Chen arrived in Florida on May 28th. Started teaching on June 1st. Standard curriculum. Aircraft systems, tactical formation flying, gunnery, navigation. But Chen added something not in the official syllabus. During individual training flights, she taught select students the dead engine dive. Not every student, only the ones who showed good aircraft control, good decision-making, good instinct. She'd take them up to 15,000 feet over the Gulf of Mexico, demonstrate the maneuver, let them practice. Some students caught on immediately, others struggled. Chen was selective. If a student couldn't execute the dive consistently after 3 attempts, she didn't push it. Told them it was an advanced technique they could learn later. But the students who mastered it deployed to combat theaters with knowledge their official training never gave them. Some went to Europe, some went to the Pacific. Lieutenant Sarah Chen's students in the 5th Air Force, New Guinea, started using the dead engine dive against Japanese fighters in July 1944. The tactic worked against Zeros and Oscars just like it worked against Fw-190s and Bf-109s. Japanese pilots, like Germans, assumed spinning P-38s were dead. They claimed kills and moved on. Then P-38s recovered and escaped. By August, 8 Pacific P-38 squadrons knew the dead engine dive. Lieutenant Thomas Wade transferred to 15th Air Force, Italy in June. Based at Foggia, he taught the tactic to Mediterranean theater P-38 units. Italy-based squadrons, North African squadrons. By September, the dead engine dive had spread through southern Europe. The tactic propagated pilot to pilot, squadron to squadron, no official training bulletins, no doctrine updates, no technical manuals, just pilots teaching pilots, survival tactics spreading through informal networks. By September 1944, an estimated 200 P-38 pilots across 3 theaters knew the dead engine dive and counter tactic. Official Army Air Forces documentation, 0 mention. Statistics told the story. August 1943 to January 1944. 114 P-38s lost to single-engine failure in combat. February to July 1944. 41 P-38s lost to single-engine failure. 64% reduction. Lives saved. Estimated 73 pilots who went home instead of dying. 73 pilots who learned that looking dead could keep them alive. August 7, 1944. Keller's 50th mission. Final mission of his combat tour. Target: Luftwaffe airfield at Giebelstadt, southern Germany. Heavy fighter resistance expected. Keller's flight took off at 09:42 hours. Climbed to 23,000 feet. Crossed into German airspace at 10:55 hours. Contact with enemy fighters at 11:12 hours. 8 Fw-190s dove from 26,000 feet. Standard German tactic: altitude advantage, speed advantage. They split into 2 groups. 4 attacked Keller's element, 4 attacked the other element. Keller didn't use the dead engine dive. Didn't need to. His wingman, Lieutenant David Park, stayed with him. They worked together, covered each other, executed standard fighter tactics, mutual support, aggressive maneuvering, good communication. 2 Fw-190s committed to Keller. Park engaged them from their 6 o'clock, shot one down, the other broke off, climbed away. Keller reversed on the remaining 2 Fw-190s attacking Park. Got guns on one, 3-second burst. The Fw-190's right wing folded. Aircraft tumbled, no shoot. The last Fw-190 disengaged, dove away. Keller and Park reformed, continued the mission. 20 minutes later, they jumped 4 more Fw-190s over the target area. Keller shot down one. Park damaged another. Both Americans escaped without damage. Landing at RAF Huntington, 16:15 hours. Mission time, 6 hours, 33 minutes. Keller's kills for the mission, 2 confirmed. Total career kills, 9. Ground crew congratulated him. 50 missions complete. Tour finished. Orders to return stateside. He was going home. Captain Marsh met him at the flight line. You did good, Keller. Keller. How many pilots are using the drop now? Last count, over 200. Maybe more. It's spreading to squadrons I've never even heard of. How many have we lost? 6 pilots whose engines wouldn't restart. All 6 bailed out. All 6 survived as POWs. 0 fatalities directly attributable to the tactic. Keller looked at his P-38, tail number 423. He'd flown it for 43 missions, both engines running smooth, no damage, ready for the next pilot. Then it was worth it. Marsh, more than worth it. You gave 73 pilots a reason to come home. That's not tactics. That's legacy. Keller shook his head. Legacy is what happens after. Right now, it's just survival. But Marsh was right. The dead engine dive had become more than a tactic. It had become proof that innovation didn't come from headquarters or training manuals. It came from pilots trying not to die. From anyone willing to break regulations to save lives. Keller flew home to Montana on August 14th, arrived in Butte on August 21st. His father met him at the train station. They didn't talk much, didn't need to. His father looked at him, saw he was alive, nodded once. That evening, sitting on the porch of their house, Keller's father asked one question. You do what you needed to do? Yeah, I did. Good. That's all that matters. They sat in silence, watched the sun set over the mountains. Keller thought about Suarez, about Chen, about 51 pilots who died following doctrine, about 73 pilots who'd lived because someone tried something different, about mine shafts and looking dead. His father was right. Sometimes the only way out of a bad situation is to make it look worse. Sometimes survival means doing what you're not supposed to do. Sometimes the best tactics never get written down. They just get passed from pilot to pilot, one life saved at a time.